Hello, everyone. It's great to talk with you again today. Winter continues and the Big Ten season is rolling along. Those who watched were privy to a top 25 showdown between number 1 Purdue and number 24, the Ohio State Buckeyes, last night. It was a hard fought battle against a good Ohio State team for the number 1 Boilermakers. Purdue was coming off of its first loss of the season. Yes, still ranked number 1 until Monday, that is. And they did not want to lose 2 games in a row. That just happened to UConn, the number 2 team in the country, earlier this week. They didn't want to have that happen. Now, there were plenty of questions, though, on both sides of the ball last night. Could Ohio State beat a top-ranked team and keep itself atop the Big Ten because they're undefeated? Could Purdue rebound after a close loss at home to Rutgers 65-64 on Monday night? Now, a game where Rutgers really took advantage of every single weakness that Purdue had. Their game plan was solid. They played good basketball to win a really close one at Mackey Arena. So Purdue needed to make some adjustments. Teams are starting to realize what they can do to defend Zach Edey, who I affectionately call ZD. The push of double and triple teaming ZD and showing that they are not afraid of Purdue hitting the long ball is going to continue until they change it. In other words, start shooting better. And honestly, who would be worried right now the way they've been shooting? The Boilermakers have been flat the last 3 weeks shooting, and that means things have been tough on them, especially with the three-pointer. So, swarm ZD and take your chances. It has worked lately, and Purdue finally lost because of that smart tactic on Monday night. Now, Coach Holtman of the Buckeyes said that his team is a work in progress, and they're continuing to try to get better each and every day. That's what he said before the game. And you know what? That sounded very reminiscent of me or of Coach Painter, what he said 2 days ago. Moving forward and learning from the mistakes and getting better each and every day. Good coaches, they definitely think alike, don't they? Okay, enough with all the platitudes. Let's get to the game. Basically, I'm going to tell you what I was thinking as the game went on. Not a play-by-play, nothing like that for your comments, but a feel for the flow of each team and some of their successes and failures throughout the game. The first couple minutes of the game, both teams are pretty energetic, moving around the court quickly. But Purdue, of course, misses its first 5 shots from the field. Meanwhile, Ohio State gets a dunk for their first shot on a breakdown by the defense where they overplayed the top of the key. Pushing out to the 16-12 mark, Ohio State had a fast break for another dunk, and OSU was shooting 3 for 5 from the field and was up 6-3. Now, Purdue was 1 for its first 9 at this point, and things didn't look great. But Purdue was getting tons of offensive rebounds and open shots, just nothing was going down. Now, a breakdown by the Ohio State defense at the 16-12 time led to a Zach Edey, ZD, let's call him ZD now, and he got a bucket. But during that bucket, Ohio State's defender Zed Key appeared to be hurt on the play as they went to a timeout. Now, the way he was holding his shoulder, it looks like it could have been a separation, and I believe they're calling it a mild strain here this morning. A mild strain of the shoulder. Now, Purdue took its first lead 7-6 on a nice drive by Braden Smith, coming out of the timeout with a good play set up there. Ohio State responded quickly with a contested 3-point basket by Thornton, and I'm telling you right now, it was a nice shot. He had a hand in his face, but he still drained it. So, back and forth play now continued as Purdue was 3 for 13 from the field and 0 for 6 from three-point land halfway through the first half. Meanwhile, Ohio State was 6 of 8 and now up 13-7 and on a 7-0 run. For the next 2 minutes, Purdue played sloppy with a couple turnovers and more missed shots. One led to a fast break because OSU's Sensabaugh, who's a stud, was sprinting down the court before the rebound was gotten. He did this twice, but it got him 2 more points and a free throw to make it a 3-pointer because he got fouled, and a 12-0 run continued. So, Ohio State is shooting 75% from the field, and Purdue was 3 for its first 18 and shooting 17%. 17%. It seemed very close to the danger range of losing the game just in the first 9 or 10 minutes. I had watched some tape of Northwestern and Ohio State that had been played earlier this week, and it was eerily similar to that game. Ohio State couldn't miss, and their opponent couldn't throw it in the ocean. They got out to a big lead, and then they won the game. Not sure if that was going to happen at this point in the game. Quality shots were still coming for the Boilermakers. You would think eventually some of them might actually start to fall. Now, the rhythm of the game with 6 minutes left in the half had been all Ohio State, as they were shooting well and defending well. Meanwhile, Purdue missed a myriad of open shots. They were everywhere, so they were running the offense well. Both teams had plenty of energy as they headed towards halftime, although Purdue was the more sloppy team of the two. With 4.5 minutes left, the score was Ohio State 28 and Purdue 21. Purdue had 10 offensive rebounds at that point. OSU had none. That one factor was keeping the Boilermakers closer than it really felt. Even with great shooting by Ohio State and terrible shooting by Purdue, it was only a 7-point game, at least at that point. The momentum totally changed with a minute and a half left as Purdue drained 2 3-pointers in a row to cut it to a 3-point lead, and it went to 33-30 at that point. There was a timeout, of course, and after the timeout, Braden Smith picked OSU's pocket, turning it into a fast break. He pulled up for a 3-pointer to tie the game at 33. They went to the break after OSU got itself 3 more points, and they were up 36-33, and they were shooting 56%. Meanwhile, Purdue got hot towards the end of the half, started making some shots, and the shooting percentage got up all the way to 42%. So they were at 17, 19%, moved all the way to 42%, so they started shooting very well. What seemed like it shouldn't have been an OSU blowout, that's what it should have been. That's what it felt like. It turned into a close game by the time the teams had played a full 20 minutes. At one point, the Buckeyes were even up as much as 13 points. But the Buckeyes only had one guy over 6'7" on their team, and they were doing great team swarming and double teaming Zach Edey. That held him to only 4 points in the first half, so that was something that was important. On the flip side, Sensabaugh had 13 points on 6 for 8 shooting for Ohio State in that first half. Again, the man's a stud. Big body, moves well. He's going to be great. So, just like Rutgers on Monday, the Buckeyes used the same tactics when possible. They braced their smaller man or backed their smaller man down into the paint for some easy shots and a beautiful fallaways. Then they swarmed Ziti, creating some turnovers and fast breaks. So it was the same scenario. Teams know what to do now. But the second half, let's get into it, it started off furiously, everybody up and down the court, as Purdue pounded inside to Ziti, scored the first 5 points, and took the lead. It looked like it was going to be over, or things had started to change. But Ohio State came right back, hitting drop threes. It was beautiful. Purdue had Jenkins come out instead of Lawyer in the second half, as Lawyer still seems to be struggling. He didn't have any points in the first half. Meanwhile, Braden Smith had 15 points as they went into a timeout with 15 minutes left in the game. He was doing it for Purdue. At 46-45, OSU is what the score was at that point. Now, Coach Painter must have heard me as he stubbed in Lawyer, who immediately drained a 3, and Purdue took a 48-46 lead. Now, I have to say, to that point, it was a fun game to watch. Ohio State looks really good on offense, and they're playing tough defense. Purdue was hanging in there, trying to do everything they can, even the small things. And the rest were not even involved in the game in either direction. That's always a good day when that happens. Now, at the 13-10 mark, Purdue was on a 10-0 run, and Ohio State had missed their last 6 shots. Purdue was now up 52-46, and you could see how that momentum had totally changed to Purdue's side. But boom, OSU returned fire with the next 4 points, as Purdue had a possession similar to an earlier Buckeye possession where they had like 4 chances after getting offensive rebounds and eventually never scored. That happened to the Buckeyes earlier in the game, and it happened to Purdue at that point. Now, at the 8:44 mark, the score was 57-56, and the stars of the game, Sensabaugh and Smith, were doing very well in guiding their teams. So, coming out of the break, Purdue had a couple of loose passes again and lost the lead quicker than you can say Shazam, right? They had 13 turnovers at that point, and the Boilermakers, that's a lot, of course, but Ohio State only had 5 with 5 minutes left. 13-5, big difference there, of course. Now, the score was 63-61 Ohio State. Coming down the stretch, the teams are trading leads and playing solid basketball. There have been 9 lead changes, to be specific, with like 5 minutes left in the game. Now, With a minute left in the game and tied at 66, Purdue worked it around to the wing and got the wide open three-pointer they wanted, but missed it. OSU came down and buried a three, and it looked like it might be over at that point. But Purdue got it to their Player of the Year candidate, and he backed in for a deuce. After another timeout, Purdue put on a full-court press, which may have caught OSU off guard, as the inbound pass, it came in right at the corner, right where you can box them in. Purdue could easily trap someone at that point. The man tried to pass out, and the next pass ended up a steal via Morton, who immediately called timeout. Now, Purdue came out of the timeout, and they went to their big man again, and he was double-teamed. That's exactly what you would have thought was going to happen. ZD passed back out to Fletcher Lawyer this time, who got a wide-open three, and he buried it this time. 71-69 was the score with 10 seconds left on the clock. Purdue took the lead. Now, OSU did have a chance. They crossed midcourt and called a timeout with 6.4 seconds left. What a game at this point. Big Ten action is exciting. I've told you that many times. Now for the finish. OSU got it into their best player, Sensabaugh. Purdue played tight defense and forced him into not even getting the shot off, and Purdue wins 71-69. Awesome game. Neither team deserved to lose. There were so many changes, there were so many pushes, so many momentum, and the guys played great on both sides. But here's some quick thoughts. Purdue had a poor first half and got it going late in that first half. They got very close to the point where they may have not been able to come back. The second half looked like Purdue, though. The flow was better, and everything seemed to move and gel right, and they scored 40 points instead of the 31 that they had in the first half. Still, though, too many throwaway passes. Teams are now getting their hands up, right, and slapping passes away. Entry passes, that is, to ZD, all right? Purdue will need to adjust to that and also stop trying to make some of the wild sideways passes they got away from them for sure. Yes, sometimes it works, but they must have thrown a half a dozen of them away, and there must have been 2 or 3 batted balls trying to come into ZD. Now, ZD had 16, 11, and 4, another solid game despite being double-teamed. Fletch, he had 11 all in the second half, and that was the pick-me-up. Morton had 10 points and the big steal late. Smith had 16, 6, and 4 rebounds, so 6 assists and 16 points. Jenkins was solid, hitting all 3 of his three-pointers, ending with 9 points, and he was a spark off the bench because, remember, he came in instead of Lawyer when they started the second half. Caleb First quietly had 3 points, but 7 crucial rebounds. Flipping to Ohio State, though, Sensabaugh had 21 points, 5 rebounds. The man is a stud. He could probably be in the pros right now. He looks great. Suing went for 15 and 5, but no one else was in double figures for Ohio State. So their big 3 or 4 that usually is their core, only 2 of them did something. And, of course, the big man got hurt early on. Things could have changed. You never know. More stats, though, that fill your brain with. Purdue shot 41% from 3. They started 1 for 9. What a big change. They were hitting everything in the second half, as you would think they would, because they kept getting wide open shots. Purdue has now won 8 of the last 11 games versus Ohio State. That's going back 6, 7 years. That's crazy. That's kind of like Rutgers beating Purdue, too. They seem to have their number. Now, Purdue was plus 10 rebounding, 37-27, and had double-digit offensive rebounds. That's a power that they have. They're leading the nation in rebounds, or pretty close to it, so they got to keep that up. Here's the problems, though, a few of them. Fadeaways and pull-up jumpers by OSU. They made a ton of them, and very similar to what Rutgers did. Get down in the paint, not near ZD, and back the other guys in or pop a little jumper or something. But there were some pluses. Lawyer came alive in the second half. That was great. Rebounding was awesome, of course. The three-pointer percentage was up in the second half, and it appeared adjustments were made again, just like the Rutgers game, and the team met the challenge and came through this time. In the Rutgers game, they did great too. They just didn't win that one. Now, in the post-game press conference, Coach Painter thought that Gillis and Jenkins had been a spark in that last 5 minutes of the first half, so they got the start in the second half. Look at that. Good play gets you good playing time. He said they were very fortunate because they didn't have a good start to this game. We were not better than Ohio State in this game. We were just one possession better than Ohio State. That's what the coach said. All right, so that's some stirring words right there. He wants the guys to understand about quality possessions, he said. 14 turnovers is way too many. That's more of an issue anyway when we turn the ball over, is what he had to say. So he's still pretty tough on the team because they were very sloppy at times, but they were much more fluid in the second half. All right. It was an exciting Big Ten game. It went right down to the wire as expected and as I told you was going to happen, right? They're all going to be like this, or most of them anyway. We'll call it a day right now, and we'll head towards Penn State on Sunday, and I'll have some details on that game probably coming up tomorrow. It's been great talking with you. See you next time.
Shut up and sit down.